May the merciful gods, if indeed there be such, guard those hours when no power of the will or drug that the cunning of man devises can keep me from the chasm of sleep. Death is merciful, for there is no return therefrom, but with him who has come back out of the nethermost chambers of night, haggard and knowing peace rests nevermore. Fool that I was to plunge with such unsanctioned frenzy into mysteries no man was meant to penetrate. Fool or God that he was my only friend who led me and went before me, and who in the end passed into terrors which may yet be mine. The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear. And the oldest and strongest kind of fear is the fear of the unknown. But how do we view this unknown? And what are its patterns of being? Where does this fear originate from, and what is the meaning behind it? There are many questions when it comes to our psychic reality, and in this video we'll explore the depths of our unconscious through the life and work of H.P. Lovecraft and Carl Jung. Before we continue, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe if you want more videos like this. Sit back and enjoy. Firstly, let's see who exactly was H.P. Lovecraft. Well, Lovecraft was an American writer of weird and horror fiction who became famous for his creation of the Cthulhu Mythos. In his stories, the focus was set on interpreting the place of humankind in the universe. For Lovecraft, humanity was an unimportant part of cosmos that didn't care for it. Moreover, the entire cosmos could be swept away in any given moment. Lovecraft's stories are also famous for his fantastic elements and the eerie sensation of the unknowable that marks them. That other which escapes our wording, be it a color that can be described, a song that can be sung, or a tale that can be told, is what we fear. Lovecraft has said that he never tries to write a story, but that rather he waits until it needs to be written. Dreams, those gateways to the unconscious, as Carl Jung claimed, had an important place in the literary career of Lovecraft. Many of his writings were influenced by dreams that are, as Lovecraft in the Hypnos tale says, those rare dreams beyond dreams, which come never to common men, and but once or twice in the lifetime of imaginative men. Lovecraft often compared his characters to dreamers that were helpless in the face of experiencing a nightmare. His stories were of a dreamlike quality and have described all the troubles, crises and sleepless nights of the so-called modern individual. His characters lost in the world of the unknown, the hideous creatures that lurk from the other, the creepy settings that chill the bones, the plot that takes the describer's breath away. All this can be seen as an indicator of the situation in which the modern individual lives. Jung teaches us that the modern man suffers horribly from the feelings of emptiness and disillusionment due to the extreme and terrible separation of the rational and the spiritual, which is repressed in the unconscious. This unconscious content then gets projected outward, and with all its repressed feelings becomes a dangerous and threatening force that needs to be tamed by the process of individuation. In this process, the reintegration of the separated parts of the psyche gives a solution to the problem by actualizing the self. When it comes to Lovecraft's characters, they are unable to understand this, and each encounter with the unknowable unconscious brings abysmal horror that drives them into a psychotic break. In the story of Dagon, the main character tells us the following: I know not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen far above the eastern plain, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more. Such visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again. From our past videos, we explained how water was the symbol of the unconscious, and the same character from Dagon says this: I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be crawling and floundering on its slimy bed, worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likeness on submarine obelisks of water-soaked granite. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billows to drag down in their reeking talons the remnants of puny, war-exhausted mankind. Of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean floor shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium. Joseph Campbell, in a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, says that the regions of the unknown, desert, jungle, deep sea, alien land, etc., are free fields for the projection of unconscious content. End quote. And we can see from the work of Lovecraft that the so-called other is found in the depths, and that things which are born of the underside of the world threaten at any moment to break out upon the waking world. Moreover, Mossick tells us that Lovecraft shifted the source of horror from the traditional but no longer believable ghosts and demons to the vast and unplumbed abysses beyond space and time, and to the equally unknown recesses of the human mind, to the so-called torturous depths of the unconscious. Jung has taught us that when the archetypes are repressed, their specific energy disappears into the unconscious with uncountable consequences. And the more they are repressed, the more they spread through the whole personality in the form of a neurosis. He argued that this modern individual thinks more in terms of causality and tries to find a natural and rational cause behind everything, forgetting that they are invisible, arbitrary and supernatural forces that cannot be rationalized or measured. Lovecraft said that the most merciful thing in the world is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. End quote. We should have in mind that most of Lovecraft's characters were learned men pertaining to the position of officers, researchers, authors, or professors. These characters, as modern men, don't accept the existence of these archetypal invisible forces, as they assure us that they have long surpassed the world of dreams and superstitions and are governed by rationality. They live by the law of scientific materialism, which states that which can be measured or experienced through the senses is mere fiction. As they want to govern nature, the only thing they want to find are the natural causes behind phenomena, and anything that doesn't have a natural cause is repressed or swept under the carpet, not to be spoken of. The existence of these forces would amount to proof that their attempt to dominate nature is futile after all. Carl Jung, in Approaching the Unconscious, says the following: as scientific understanding has grown, so our world has become dehumanized. Man feels himself isolated in the cosmos, because he's no longer involved in nature and has lost his emotional unconscious identity with natural phenomena. These have slowly lost their symbolic implications. His contact with nature has gone, and with it has gone the profound emotional energy that this symbolic connection supplied. End quote. Lovecraft's so-called other is a certain revelation of the unconscious content that is a source of horror for his characters and readers. This is the reason why Lovecraft is still being widely read in the 21st century with a growing in popularity. Lovecraft manages to bring us the unconscious images which are common across all humanity, regardless of place, time, or origin, by externalizing the interior archetypes. His eerie symbols and images are tied to the archetypal instances of being, and that makes them scary and disturbing because confronting with such unconscious content is a threat to our inner safety. These projections manage to change the world into a replica of one's unknown face. As Carl Jung raises the idea of the unus mundus, according to which there is no difference between psychological and physical facts, nor between past, present, or future. This means that Lovecraft's characters and monsters show us the truth of the dissociated psyche of the modern man. This means that the unknowable, the Lovecraftian other, in its violent, dangerous, irrational, and primate emanations, can be viewed as the repressed side of the modern individual who disregarded these qualities within himself. We fear that internalizing these violent primate and illogical forces will bring harm to our self-image. Jung taught us that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." End quote. We need to face our roots and step into the dark, undiscovered and unknowable parts of our own psyche in order to be complete. As we can see, this is impossible for the characters of Lovecraft and their attempts to individuate end in disastrous neuroses. Be sure to comment down below your favorite work by H.P. Lovecraft and or Carl Jung. Let's end this video on a quote from Witches and Other Night Fears by Charles Lamb. "Gorgons and hydras and chimeras, dire stories of Ciliano and the Harpies, may reproduce themselves in the brain of superstition, but they were there before. They are transcripts, types. The archetypes are in us and eternal. How else should the recital of that which we know in a waking sense to be false come to affect us at all? Is it that we naturally conceive terror from such objects, considered in their capacity of being able to inflict upon us bodily injury? Oh, least of all, these terrors are of older standing. They date beyond the body, or without the body. They would have been the same. That the kind of fear here treated is purely spiritual, that it is strong in proportion as it is objectless on earth, that it predominates in the period of our sinless infancy, are difficulties, the solution of which might afford some probable insight into our anti-mundane condition, and a peep at least into the shadowland of pre-existence." End quote. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you want to support the channel, check out the Patreon link in the description below. Thanks for rebuilding Olympus.